Hey everyone, George with the Art of Water, and today we wanted to do an update here on the Top Fin 5 gallon that I've had set up for quite a while here. It's been cycled for almost a year now, and I just wanted to kind of go over this with you because I did a total rescape of this tank, and the reason why is my Monte Carlo that was in here just decided to melt down after being in here for many months. I have no idea why, and at this point it really doesn't matter, but just decided give this tank a fresh look and rescape the whole tank. So basically the changes that were made here is I had Dragonstone in here before. I took that out, replaced it with some maple stone, which I think is a beautiful stone. I'm using it more and more with a lot of my scapes, and people really like it. The ones that I'm doing for other people really enjoy it. I've got a nice piece of wood in here, and of course all the plants were changed with the exception of some of the crypts that are in here. Some of them are established and have been in here. I kept those in, and then I added some more. The other plants that I added were the Anubias Petite Nana, and also a Rosetta sword in the back there. And I'm going to kind of leave this very small. I'm not going to put a lot of plants in here. I'm finding that overplanting in some of these nano tanks, the plants grow so fast that it really is not necessary to put so much in here. And I love crypts, I really do. I'm sort of like George Farmer, one of my favorite hobbyists out there in the scaping business, and he does the same thing. He loves crypts, and I agree with him. They just grow so beautifully. These are going to be short little guys. I don't know the particular name on these particular crypt. I will come up with that and write that in my comment sections later on. I also am running CO2 in here. This is a small kit which I am going to be swapping out. The reason why I'm going to be swapping it is because I am finding that it is very difficult to regulate it and keep it going every morning and that sort of thing without having it explode in there or take forever to come on. So I will be replacing that with a more sophisticated kit here over the next week or so. Second thing I wanted to get into are some products here, and I'm not pushing Seachem. They don't give me anything. I want to make sure everybody understands that. But these are products that I have found that Seachem has that I find are very good products, and I really enjoy using them. The first one is Neutral Regulator. If you're having problems with pH, this thing adjusts your pH to 7.0 and you don't have to worry about it. Most fish and invertebrates can handle that particular kind of pH, and it works really well for that. Now, Flourish XL I use along with my CO2, and I do use maybe a drop or two of that every couple of days. I don't do it any more than that. I do 50% water changes still, and I do those about every 12 days now. I used to do them twice a week. I went down to one time a week, and any tank that has cycled, I basically go to about a 12-day system and do a 50% water change, and that seems to really do the trick. Stability, another great product. You don't have to worry. Once you've done a water change, I just use a small amount of that based on the directions on the back of it. Another great Seachem product. And as you can see here, it rapidly and safely establishes the biofilter, which my tanks are cycled, but it also prevents new tank syndrome, which can happen during a large water change. 50% is actually quite a bit of water, as you know. So I do use that as well. Prime is just excellent remover of chlorine and chloramines of any kind. It detoxifies ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates really well. I use that for my dechlorinator and just find that it is an absolutely excellent product to use, and I really love the product itself. This here is my secret sauce. This is a fertilizer. I use about 2 drops of that a day in all of my tanks. I have about 10 tanks in my home that are nano tanks, and I have larger tanks, of course, as well. we'll get into that a little bit more later on. The other product here, Cupramine, this is something you don't want to ever have to use, but you want to have this on hand. I find that the Cupramine by Seachem is excellent. It's a copper product, so if you do have parasitic problems or you have ick, this is a product that you're going to want to have on hand. I've only had one case of ick or parasites in 7 years, but if you don't have the product on hand, it can come down to just hours sometimes as to whether your fish live or die. So it's really important to have this product on hand. You don't want to have to use it, and if you do use it, just know it is going to kill your plants. So get your plants out of the tank. Anything that's in there, it will not hurt invertebrates. It does not bother them, but I would remove them as well, just as a precaution, and put them in a quarantine tank. Now, I quarantine everything. Everything is in a quarantine tank. We've talked about this before. I do have a quarantine tank for all of my fish. I made the mistake about 3 months ago, as some of you will remember, on some rummy nose tetras that I did not quarantine, and I thought it was going to be fine. My supplier had told me that he had them for quite a while, and to be honest with you, I don't know what the problem was, but as we all know, ick is in every fish tank. It's just a matter of whether or not the fish are susceptible to it from being weak or run down, and I don't think that he had quarantined these fish, and I don't think that he had them very long, and that's why we ended up with that. But I was successful at treating them, didn't lose a single fish, caught it right away, and they are surviving and thriving in another tank, and that's for another day. The other thing I want to talk about is just a few supplies that I have here. I normally have a pair of scissors right here to go along with my tweezers, but right now I've misplaced those. I was doing some water changes today and I can't seem to find those, but I will. The other thing is a small paintbrush for any kind of scaping at all. Some people use a regular standard latex brush to move your substrate around. In this particular tank, I am using Fluval Stratum, which I love. I use that in almost every tank that I have. I find it to be an absolutely perfect tank substrate for petite, or not petite, but for nano tanks and even larger tanks, because the plants do so well in it. They just absolutely thrive. Now, in this particular situation here, I like it because the color of the fish stand out at the bottom, and most fish like, in the Tetra family or in the Raspora family, most of those types of fish thrive and like a darker substrate, and also their colors stand out against it, which I find to be you get two things to happen at one time. Also, as you'll notice down at the bottom here, we have autocichlids. There's, I think, 3 or 4 of those in here. Do not put less than 2 in. They just don't do well as a loner fish. If you're putting them in there for algae purposes and whatever, that's what I have them for. I don't have problems with algae. In fact, I get to the point where I have to subsidize their algae with tabs. It doesn't matter what brand that you get. There's all kinds of different companies that sell algae tabs out there, but do have that on hand to subsidize it, because if autocichlids quit eating, it's hard to get them back eating and they will die. So you want to make sure that you are keeping some tabs on hand in case your algae is not enough to sustain them. So I want to emphasize that it's important to do that. Now, the fish that I have in here, as you can see, sorry about my finger getting in the way. I'm not using a tripod today. I'm kind of winging this. But these are Serpa Tetra. These are going to get big. I'm not keeping them in here. This is basically for this video only. And they've been in my quarantine tank. I put them in here. I am going to add them to a 50-gallon tank that I have in another part of my home, and put something small in here. I'm right now looking at licorice gouramis. I'm looking at several different kinds of nano fish, something new and unusual, and there are plenty of those coming out on the market as people become more and more demanding of those size fish in these small tanks. So, getting back to what we were talking about, as I said, I keep a couple of jugs of dechlorinated water on hand for emergency purposes. And I was getting to this right here. I love using this because it's rubber. And these bristles are just so fine. They just are so perfect for moving. If you can find one of these, I don't even know if you can find them anymore, but if you can find, I stole it out of my wife's cooking drawer, and she happened to have two of them, so she didn't mind that I did that. But it's perfect for when you're pouring water in, or if you're rescaping or whatever, and you want to move your substrate around. It's perfect. It acts just like a brush does. I think it's actually better because you can get into finer, smaller areas. And if you have an established tank already, that works great. Toothbrush, so essential to keeping glass clean, for getting in nooks and crannies and corners, down the edges of your tank, on backs and whatever. Scrubbing this sort of an area right here that's small. It just works really well for me. So I always keep a toothbrush, an old toothbrush on hand. No, I don't use it on my teeth. But yeah, absolutely. An older toothbrush on hand is absolutely an essential thing, I think, for one of the tools that you would use to do maintenance on your tank. Now, again, I love this tank. Again, a top fin 5-gallon, and I don't remember what the actual brand or the name of this top fin is, but it's a 5-gallon. I think it's only one of two that they sell that is top fin and a 5-gallon, but I love it. I absolutely love it. The light alone on this thing is 33 to 34 par. The tank is $49.99. You can sometimes get it for $39.99 if they're running a sale. The light alone is worth that much money. It's absolutely fabulous. Now, I do have this one on a dimmer, so I am able to dial this down a little bit. And one of the reasons I do that is because I want to make sure that these lights are just perfect for the particular plants that I have in here. These are all low to medium plants for the requirements on lights. Anyways, please hit the subscription mark on my channel. Also, give me a thumbs up, and please leave any comments, especially on the fish that I might want to put in here. Any suggestions? I would really like anything new that's out there that everybody is or people are looking at and are telling me, yeah, you just got to have this or whatever. I'm really open-minded to putting whatever in here that's unusual and will thrive in this particular environment. So anyways, George with the Art of Water, I want to thank you for listening, and thanks for talking about or listening to me talk about the upgrade on this top fin 5-gallon that I really, really think is just a top-notch tank. We'll talk again soon.